Hello and welcome to the Windows Phone 8 How-To series by F1 Wizards. I am Shubham Saxena and I'll guide you through this module installing Windows Phone 8 tools and introduction to the development environment. So the first thing you need is set up the environment for developing Windows Phone applications. Windows Phone SDK includes all the tools required to create a Windows Phone application. It includes Visual Studio Express 2012 for Windows Phone, some project templates for creating Windows Phone applications, and Windows Phone emulator for testing, and many other things like Microsoft Blend and all. The link you see below, dev.windowsphone.com/en-us/download SDK, is the link where you can download this Windows Phone SDK. Once you open this link, you will get this window and you can see that SDK 8.0. Just download this link, it's about 1.6 GB. Once you download this link, you will have Visual Studio Express for Windows Phone installed in your system. Next, before downloading the SDK, you must fulfill the requirements for Windows Phone 8 SDK and Windows Phone 8 emulator. Both have different requirements. Windows Phone 8 SDK requires Windows 8, a 64-bit machine with 6.5 GB of hard disk space, 4 GB of RAM, and the Windows Phone emulator have some different requirements. It requires Windows 8 Pro for the purpose of Hyper-V. It requires the processor to support second level address translation. You can check these settings in the BIOS of your system. If your system meets the requirement of Windows Phone SDK but not the requirements of the Windows Phone 8 emulator, however, you will be able to run your app, write the codes for your app, but you won't be able to deploy your app on the emulator. You can test your apps on the device directly, but not on the Windows Phone 8 emulator. So in order to test your device on Windows Phone 8 emulator, you need to fulfill the requirement for Windows Phone 8 emulator. So without much going into the theory part, let's just quickly jump to the Visual Studio and see what is Visual Studio, what is Windows Phone developing environment, what are different kind of project templates available for us. So let's go to Visual Studio. This is the main screen when you open the Visual Studio. So on the left hand side you can see new project, open project, recent projects and all. So let's start creating a new project and we will see gradually what are the things. So new project. Here you see Visual C# Windows Phone. We are going to work on Windows Phone Visual C#. These are the kind of project templates available for us on which we can develop applications. First one, Windows Phone app. This is a very basic project template where you have a single page which is the start page of your application, and you can simply write small applications on this template. Next one is Windows Phone data bound applications. These are the projects which have some list and navigation controls, basically using the model view and view model architecture. If you want to know much about model view and view model architecture, you can just go to Bing and search what is model view and view model architecture. Next thing is Windows Phone class library. This is basically not a project which contains user elements, user controls. It's basically a class library which can be used or imported in various different Windows Phone applications. Windows Phone panorama. Panorama is a control which basically is a horizontal canvas which has a width greater than the size of the screen, and user can simply slide left to or right so that it has a nice interface within the app scrolling the items. Windows Phone Pivot app. Pivot is also a control where a user can smoothly switch between the views or the pages within an app, like you can see on the right hand side, first and second. So it's a simple page, but you can directly swipe and go to the second page and first and back and go and forth and first. The next two modules, XAML 3D and XAML XNA, are the project templates which are used to create games for Windows Phone. HTML5 app. This is an app which basically uses the HTML5 content as the basic controls for the applications. And the rest three project templates are the templates which are used for creating the background agent, schedule tasks, streaming audio and all. So background agent and schedule tasks we will discuss in the later modules, so I'm just leaving these three templates. So for creating a basic application, you can just go to Windows Phone application for the basic thing. Let me name it my first application and just click on OK. So it will now load up. Oh, it will ask me an OS version. Which OS version I will want to do, 7.1 or 8. So currently we are doing Windows Phone 8. I'll choose Windows Phone 8 and press OK. It's just creating my application. It will add some references, necessary references, and it will show me up a basic design view and all these things. Let's see. So this is it. On the left hand side you can see loading designer. On the right hand side you can see a XAML code. I will tell you what is XAML and all. So let's wait while the designer being loaded. So this is the application, or this is the Windows Phone layout with how the application will look. Simply it's our application name and a page name, basic application. And here is the XAML for this thing. XAML is nothing but the design for this code for this design shown on the left hand side. Like if you have a text block here, so you have a code for. So if you want to add anything to this design or application, you just have to write the XAML code, or else you can simply drag some controls from the toolbox and just add it to your Windows Phone application. Toolbox is nothing but a box which contains all the tools which are required for developing a Windows Phone application. Suppose you want a button, so you need not to write the code for button. You can just simply click on the button and you will have this button on your application. You can just move, drag and rotate, whatever you want to do with your button. So designing an application becomes easy when you're working with Visual Studio. So I simply have a button. On this is the XAML part of this thing. On the right hand side you have a Solution Explorer. Solution Explorer is nothing but a window which contains all the files, resources, assets, references which are required within the project. So it will have some XAML files, some CS files, some resource files like tiles, images and all, some assets, and that's it. And below that you can see a properties window. Properties window is nothing but which shows the properties of any tool selected. Suppose I have selected a button here, so it's showing me the properties of the button. On the very top corner you can see buttons, properties, and this event. Events are the things which are we going to handle so that our app act as dynamic app. And properties are the properties which are the basic button properties. Suppose you want to change the text of the button, you simply write content my button. So that content of the button will change to my button. So these are basic properties which you can change. You can change the color of the button, you can change the text, you can rotate the button and all, set the margin, padding and all this thing. So these are the basic things. If you want to add some control, some code to it, you can go to CS file, mainpage.xaml.cs. This is the file where you can add some code which will add dynamically to your applications. Okay. So anytime this toolbox disappears, this Solution Explorer disappears, this properties window disappear, you can simply call them back from this view section. View section has all these things: properties window, toolbox and Solution Explorer. You can anytime click on these, so if they vanishes you can go to view, toolbox, and they can call them back. This is a major issue many of these problems face, that toolbox is not coming. Okay, after you have done the designing part of the application, you might need to check how your application looks on a Windows Phone emulator. So you can on the top see a green button which says emulator, debug your application. Just press on this button, play button. It will deploy your application to the Windows Phone emulator, and you can see how your application looks like on a Windows Phone emulator. I'll close this. This is the basic Windows Phone emulator. You might be familiar with this thing. So this is my app, the app which I designed. It does nothing. It has a button, simply clicking it, nothing happens because I haven't added any code to it yet. So this is my simple application. I can test it on my Windows Phone emulator. Let's see what is Windows Phone emulator and how it works. Okay, before seeing that, anytime if you want to stop debugging your application, stop your application from running in the emulator, just press this button, stop debugging. Your app will stop debugging and you can start editing your application or write some code there. Okay, so let's see what is Windows Phone emulator. This is a basic main home page, start page or thing. It contains some tiles which get updated automatically. This is the app list which contains all the list of the apps installed there, my first applications which I installed there. So it's here, and along with these things I have some additional tools which are added with this Windows Phone emulator. These are location thing. Suppose you want to have location in your application. Suppose you are trying to have Bing Maps application or something like that, and your Windows Phone emulator can't go physically to different locations. So you can use these additional tools location, and you can just set the location here from here, and your phone will act as if it's somewhere else, the location which you enter. Suppose you enter Seattle, so it will act as your phone emulator is in Seattle, and you can test your applications here. Similarly, the thing with accelerometer, you might have played some games. If you rotate your phone left, the car will move left, some right or right. So you can just simply use this thing if you want to go right, if you want to left, upside down. So these are things, accelerometer. You can just simply test these things on the emulator also. A screenshot, if you want to capture the screen, you can simply click on capture and capture the screen, and you can want to save, then you can save it. It helps a lot while promoting your application or doing something like that. So this is the basic things. So I guess you can now install the SDK. You have the basic idea what is Visual Studio, what is design, what is XAML, what is properties window, what is the solution explorer, what is toolbox, how to add controls from toolbox to the design view. So this is all which you require for going to the module second. So I hope it's very much clear and very much simple. So just get your machines ready so that we can push to the module second and we can start developing. So once you have done all this, we will publish the module 2, which is a module developing a Hello World application, a very basic application which will show you how a Windows Phone code behind file works, design file works. We will add some controls and we'll show you what is everything. So just install the tools and get ready. See you again. Bye bye. Thank you.